Welcome to Set Your Mind podcast. This is the podcast where we learn how to set our mind on things above and not below. We learn how to live from a perspective that is higher than that of the world and the status quo. Today's topic that we're going to discuss are spiritual personalities in the workplace. This is a topic that everybody needs to know. When you're a leader, it's important to know these things because it affects the culture of your workplace. It'll also affect the interpersonal dynamic of your team. I hope this episode blesses you on your journey.
What if there truly are no limitations? What if miracles are possible? How do we live in that arena? Only when you set your mind.
I think that it's really sad that we live in a culture that does not acknowledge the spirit realm. We often push it aside as either woo-woo or religious, and we dismiss it altogether. What's problematic about that is that the spiritual realm actually affects the physical realm. It'll always start in the spiritual first and then in the physical. The mindset can be considered the in-between. It comes up in your mind and then it becomes a reality. If I'm an architect, I build the building, I draw the blueprint. If I'm an engineer, I'm doing my role. And all of these parts play a role to create the building or the home that I'm in right now. There were a lot of players that made it a reality. And every organization and every business has the same sort of structure that has to happen for it to become a functioning business. As a consultant and as a coach, as somebody who's highly spiritual and who was called into the business arena, I see things from a spiritual lens. Now, understand, because we live in a very material world and we function in a very practical, I want to call spirit things that aren't spiritual practical. I never really understood that this was an asset, to be honest. What I'm sharing with you today are observations that I've made as somebody with the gift of discernment and also as somebody who is a leader. I actually have all three of these personality types. One is visionary, two is a creative, and then three is builder. I think that these are distinct roles within every organization, and we must understand how they operate and the spiritual strengths and weaknesses of these people so that we can have really strong culture and we can have really strong interpersonal communication, interpersonal relationships, and it'll be a beautiful work environment. So the first person I want to talk about are the visionaries. The visionaries are the people who can really build a vision of the future. And what makes them powerful is that they motivate you and they will paint pictures of things that don't exist yet. And they make you want to follow them and they make you want to get excited about something that could be. I think that we all have hope. And because we hope and because we believe that it could be better, visionaries hold very powerful roles in leadership positions and will dictate whether or not a culture is one that's positive or one that's negative. The hardship about the visionary personality types are that if they're not quite mature in their experiences and haven't had enough experiences, they will easily get disappointed. Visionaries envision things and they can also envision negative things. So a visionary might become crippled by their vision if it's so big, or they might become discouraged if their vision doesn't come to pass the way that they think it should come to pass. These are all emotional, mental struggles that visionaries will experience because they are generally very positive people, very hopeful people. And so when things don't go according to how they imagine them to go, they really need to learn how to manage disappointment. Visionaries can also fall victim to perfectionism because they see the ideals, and if they're not healed and they feel the weight of responsibility as a leader, they will try to control the situation and perfect it to their best ability. This is a huge problem with visionaries, and one that I have personally struggled with. So while visionaries have incredible assets and incredible skills and incredible gifts that they give to those in any organization, they can also be easily ensnared by the visions when they don't come to pass, or they can become insecure for the future based on the disappointments. Super important to not get in that trap as a visionary and stay motivated and positive when you're leading the charge and maybe a project falls through or you lose the proposal. Things of that nature can really stifle a visionary, and it makes it hard for them to move forward until they master the ability to have stamina in the journey and take the knocks, but don't lose the vision. The second group of people who are spiritual people are creatives. The creatives are entirely those that are artisans and musicians. They might be theater people, they might be dancers, they might be design people. It's all people who are in the creative space, and they are creating a feeling, they're creating a reality. This space is very emotional space, and it's fascinating because these people are highly emotional people. Anybody that's ever worked with any type of art knows that that's a fact. They know that that's a fact. If you are working with a graphic artist and they create something that won't actually convert, it's not actually a good marketing piece. It might be visually beautiful, but it's not going to convert. It's not going to execute the function that it needs to execute. As a marketing person, you have to learn how to engage a creative designer and affirm their work, but also direct their work. So when you're dealing with creatives, the person's heart is actually in that marketing brochure that they just created. It helps you realize that what you say to them emotionally impacts them. They are emotionally attached to their creation. All of them, every single one. The only ones that are creatives that are less emotional are the builders. And that leads me to the builders. What's different about the builders and the creators is that the creators are creating emotion. The creators are creating something that evokes an emotional response. That's how you engage with a creator. You create an art piece, or you create design to create environment, to create space. And that's really the role of creators. But does builders, and while they might be creators and builders, builders are creating functionality. And depending on what you're building, it has to function. That's not an option when it doesn't function. I had a guest on recently that said things that are outside of God's arena are only the things that are dysfunctional. Meaning that if you're a builder, you're creating function for whatever it is that you're building. Should that be a campaign? Should that be a business? Maybe that's a organization that helps the poor. Whatever it is that you're building, you are actually creating something that functions to benefit the world. If it's in the marketplace and there's an exchange of money, that means that what you build has value. When I first built my first business, I thought that I had reached the pinnacle of understanding because I went through all of the hardship of building something and discovering that if you're going to build a business that functions, you must have processes in place. You must have sales that work. You must have operations that are executed. You have to have a marketing program that attracts. Building business is no small task. And I do think that you could compare it to having a baby. You have the research and development phase, and that's like being pregnant. And then you have the birth, and that's going live or going public. And then you have these different stages of business. And when you have the different stages, you are going to grow exponentially like you've never grown before. And because of this, all of us in business know there's no better learning than the school of hard knocks. There's no better learning than engaging with the public. And there's no better way to come into maturity as a human being than going through the trials of starting your business and trying to make it profitable and successful. Every single part of your life will be affected by what you are building. Whereas if you're an artist, you might fail at creating the feeling you wanted to create, but you're going to be okay. If you're a visionary, that doesn't actually mean that you have taken action steps. You might be a visionary, but until you cross the line of creating functionality, creating and building that vision, you will not know the hard knocks of life and the pain and struggle. This is why it's so important for other builders to find each other and to exchange stories, to exchange wisdom, things that they've learned. One of my coaching programs is entirely based on Revelations 12 because that's the key to overcoming. And that's the key that you learn when you are in building a business or building anything. If you want to build a family, that's challenging, right? If you want to build a career, challenging. Building means functionality, which means challenging. One of my favorite scriptures along the lines of building is, unless God builds the house, the laborers labor in vain. And that is something that we all have to come into a place of understanding, because builders, we typically want to control. We typically think that we have the best ideas, and we typically take a lot of ownership of whatever we build. So if you're a builder, I know that you completely relate to me because we've all been through it. Every single person has similar stories of discovering that people are difficult, of discovering betrayal, of discovering greed. You start to see every part of reality, and it's not all pretty reality when you build. And even when you dream of this business or idea functioning, it's really a brutal journey because you have to get over your insecurities, you have to get over your rejection, you have to get over a lot of things that would hold you back. And if you don't get over those things, then you're not going to actually get to build what God has intended for your life. So I felt very compelled to create this episode. And I kind of argued with God as I journeyed down the path of writing the roles and then the hardships of each of these different personalities. And I honestly was saying, God, I don't understand how this will be valuable to anybody. And as I am executing this podcast, in the middle of this podcast, I realize I am discovering for myself that my journey has yielded a lot of understanding that can benefit the world. And I tend to underplay the experiences I've had or even the insights I've discovered. So I guess Set Your Mind podcast is actually witnessing my journey of me setting my mind because I've been all three. I've been a painter, I've created, been a visionary, I've motivated, I've been a builder, I've failed, I've been betrayed, I've experienced the hard knocks. And what keeps you going no matter the hard knocks, is knowing that you're doing something that has purpose, and that has impact for others. I think ultimately we're all hardwired to serve others, to engage with others, to be connected to others, to grow with others. And until we're willing to risk the fears and to risk not going for it, we'll never really know the fullness of life, which is actually what Jesus came for us to have the fullness of life. It was such a big deal to him that he hung on a cross, that he endured the suffering so that you could know the fullness of life, so that you could actually build, so that you could actually create, you could actually believe and have vision. Jesus came to establish that in your life, for you to set your mind on things that are impossible but can be possible, because the mind is such a powerful tool and asset to foster the fullness of life. God bless you, friends, on your journey. Go build, go create, go have vision for God's plans. God bless you.